Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Regional Radio Sports Network. We're broadcasting live and in living color from Beef O'Brady's. We welcome you to the Coach's Box here on 91.1 FM, The Globe. And, of course, this is our very special edition, the Legends of the Game series. And two of my best friends of all time are sitting across the table as we welcome you in to season number 3, episode 11 here of Legends of the Game. Across the table, the legendary coach of the program that's right nearby here, Chris Geesman. Great to have Gees with us tonight. Cory Yeoman, likewise, who spent a lot of time with this guy, playing for this guy, coaching with this guy, and I tell you what, two guys who I've a tremendous amount of respect for. I can't tell you how much I admire what they've done, the culture that they have built. They have been great friends, great supporters of our team, and I have to do this at the start of the show just so we can put the numbers in play. Chris Geesman, when he came here to take the job at Penn, he's number 5 all-time in the history of Indiana high school football in wins. 339 wins, 66 losses. He started in 1973, finished up in 2002. Then he decided he was going to jump into the radio booth with our crew, and then our ratings went through the roof at that point in time. 5-time state champion, 3-time state runner-up, never had a losing season. His young protege, like I said, that young protege, Cory Yeoman, who played for Gees, started in 2003. Retired last year, 208 wins, 56 losses, 4-time runner-up, never had a losing season. So put it in perspective, folks. The tandem at the table today is the only tandem in the history of football in this state, which goes back to even before I was around. I know it's hard to believe, Tanner Camp, because I am that old. But having said all that, these two guys have won over 500 games. No program, no coaching tandem has ever done that. So I'm blessed to call them my friends. Blessed to have them here on the program here today. Chris, Cory, thanks for all you've done in advance of this program. Appreciate you. Chris, I got to start with you because it's great to have you here. We've done so many shows. We've done so many things together over the course of the year. I love working on our crowning achievement book with you and Cory, one of the greatest 2 or 3 year projects of my life. How's your health? How you doing, Coach?
Well, I'm hanging in there.
Isn't that the best thing to do, is hanging in there at this stage?
Yeah, I'm I feel great and everything. I've got some issues, but not life-threatening.
All right, great to see. Cory, how you enjoying retirement?
Yeah, having a good time, yeah.
What's been the most unique thing for you?
Well, naturally, being a grandfather, that's been a blast, and loving my granddaughter, Lydia.
All right. Well, I want to talk about a wide variety of topics that we kind of breezed through them when we had dinner here at Beef O'Brady's, but one of the things is I want to start with is culture. Chris, you started a culture and you started a system that that Cory kept going and is still continuing today under young Pete Reardon. So I want to talk about just some of the things that you kind of put in play, and I'd like for you just to comment about that. One of the things that when you and I were broadcasting games together, one of the things that you really kind of placed in my mind, in my heart, was the fact that when student athletes celebrate, and they should celebrate on the field when they have some success, but they should be celebrating with a teammate, not in front of the cameras or anything else. But you also created a mindset and a culture where it was we before me. Also, you also put in play a mindset not only with your coaching staff, with the media, as well as everyone else, that always respect your opponents. So I just want to start with those 3 things and talk about how you instituted those policies, if you will.
Well, the thing was, I think back when I was a player, and I think of things I would have liked, and some of the things we did that were really unique at Penn, and I know they were unique because Dick Dellahan called me up and asked me about them, and he put them in his program at Ben Davis. Number 1 was you could win a varsity letter, never getting in a varsity game. If you were Scout Team Player of the Week 3 times, you were going to get a varsity letter. That's how important we felt like getting a good look during the week was, and we told our kids that, and to keep their interest. First half of the season, 1 Scout Team Player of the Week. Second half of the season, two Scout Team Players of the Week, and in the playoffs, 3 Scout Team Players of the Week. And if you won it 3 times, you got a varsity letter. So we did that, and Dick Dellahan did it. Number 1, we dressed everybody for home games. Dick said he used to have a dress list up, And when he came up to play us at Penn, he saw all our kids there. He asked me how we got them. We said we dress everybody that doesn't miss a practice. And he put that in. So that made me feel good because at the time, Ben Davis and Dick Delahan were kind of the things you looked up to in the state of Indiana. The thing that he stole from us, that you stole. I mean, football coaches are great. They're willing to help each other out all the time. But he did some things that we did and really liked him and thanked me for it and you gave me the credit. So I mean, he wasn't trying to act like he reinvented the wheel or anything like that. But that's the way kind of coaches were.
One of the things that you really put an emphasis on, and I remember you telling the media. I mean, you could be playing South Bend LaSalle and you decided favorite against a team like that. And I'm sure Bill Beck, my buddy, who was the editor of the Elkhart Truth, will say Chris is talking about South Bend LaSalle like they're the 1972 Miami Dolphins. I mean, that's the kind of aura that you wanted your coaching staff to have, as well as you wanted to kind of get the mindset into your student athletes. And somehow, in my own mind's eye, I even believe you believed what you were thinking and what you were saying. So you always respected every opponent.
Well,
you never looked ahead.
You could. We played LaSalle one year when they were 0-9, but they beat us in track the previous year. And the kids that went for LaSalle, 1, 2, and 100, played football. So I said, listen, everybody, we were 9-0, they were 0-9. Everybody thinks that this is going to be an easy game, but let me tell you, let me give you a scenario. We kick off to one of these sprinters, and they get a little crease, and you know they're faster than anybody we got. So now they run it back, and we're up 7-0. They kick off to us. Okay, we got it now, and we've had a little trouble with our passing game, as you know. We're going to throw a pick. They got it. They intercepted, and they run it back. Now they're up 14-0. Now, they came here expecting to get beat bad. Now they're up 14-0. Their bench is in a frenzy. Their crowd's going wild. We thought it was going to be an easy game. We're liable to get beat. And our kids well, I found out later talking to kids, they loved the way I talked like that because they knew they were going to win. But they said when I tried to be real positive, they got nervous because they Coach Keith thinks this team's good.
Cory, I know that the buy-in was the most important thing, wasn't it?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it was great playing for him, and we hung on every word he said as players. But I can remember down the road when I became the head coach, and Chris come to me before the games, and I can remember Chris puking on my shoes on that LaSalle game that time, when they were 0-9 and how nervous he was. I mean, he convinced himself they were the Chicago Bears, for crying out loud. So I said, Chris, why do you think it's going to be so easy Friday? I'm a nervous wreck. We're going to be. Oh, he goes, Cory, I see things much clearer now.
Yeah, when you're in the broadcast booth, things have a different animal of their own, don't they?
Different spin when you're up in the booth.
All right, special teams, Cory.
Yes.
You guys put the special in special teams. So people, if you talk to the opponents over the course of your guys' 50 years, everybody would probably tell you that team is as good on special teams as any team or any program in the state. Can you talk about putting the special in special teams?
I just think, number one, what we did in practice daily, we did more special teams work than probably most teams in the state ever did. Every day in practice we work on special teams and spend a lot of time on that, not just one day a week, but it would be every day, and during the scouting report, no matter what the case was. And if you take a look at those championship teams and all those teams we took to the state finals, huge special teams performances. One play after another, whether it be block kicks, block punts, touchdowns, touchdown returns for a kickoff team, a punt return team. Special teams were great, pinning teams deep into their own territory. And the beauty of, I think, what Chris did was Chris gave ownership to his assistant coaches. So every assistant coach had a responsibility for one of the special teams, and they gave him a lot of responsibility. With that comes, you better get your job done. But guys coached great, and kids loved it. And told our kids it was such a great honor to be selected by another coach to be on the special team, to be considered to be good enough to be on that, and kids were dying to get on our special teams, and I think that changed with the coaches, and that changed with the kids and how they understood and took special teams as an important part of the game, and then it showed up on Friday nights.
When we come back out of the timeout, we're going to talk about some of those legendary coaches, the Hall of Famers, Cory Yeoman, Chris Geesman. We're going to talk about Wally Yeoman, Cory's dad, one of the greatest of all time, Chuck Wagner, one of your all-time greats, Charlie Lori, Donnie Monhoot, some of those guys who kind of rewrote the book, helped rewrite the book. We'll be back with more of Legends of the Game right here from Beef O'Brady's in Granger, Indiana. We'll be back right after this 2-minute timeout on 91.1 FM The Globe and globeradio.org. Welcome back here on Regional Radio Sports to Beef O'Brady's. Our program being presented in part by our friends at Harris & Sons Construction. For over a decade, Harris & Sons Construction have offered full-service remodeling and construction. Projects include kitchen, bathroom, interior home remodeling. In addition, Harris & Sons Construction also offers roofing, siding, and interior and exterior painting. For more information on the services of Harris & Sons Construction, the number is 574-514-2104, and we thank them for underwriting our broadcast here today. Chris Geesman and Cory Yeoman, two great friends of mine, spending having dinner with me here tonight at our broadcast location. A special thanks again, number one, to Tanner Camp, Cormac back at the studios, as well as Fred Maxey, Tiny County. Yeah, we even brought out the owner here today. So Tiny County is in the house, and she's making sure everybody behaves, and that may be the greatest challenge of the evening. Well, let's go right there. All right, Chris. Something that you and my dear friend Don Howe at Hobart did and told me, the most important thing you can do as a leader, as the head coach of your team, is surround yourself with great people and allow those people to do their job and empower them. So I want you to talk about setting the culture in regards to hiring coaches and giving them the authority to make plays and make calls.
I want to tell you a little story about Cory's brother, Trent Yeoman. First year he came out, he volunteered with us. He said, "What do you want me to do?" I said, "I'll tell you what, you stick with me. Watch everything I do at practice and games." So he basically just kind of followed me around, listened to everything I said. At the end of the season, I said, "How'd you enjoy it?" He said, "Well, I enjoyed it, but," he said, I'd like some responsibility." So I said, "Okay." I said, "I'm going to let you run some of the pass. You were DB, and okay, you know I'm going to let you run some drills, run some of the pass drills in practice." So he said, "Okay." And then we got together as a team. I came in, I started calling the plays, and he'd done a good job of preparing them. And I asked him in the season, I said, "How'd you like doing that?" He said, "Well, I liked it, but as soon as we teamed up, you took over and did everything." He said, "I'd like to be in charge of something." So I said, "Okay, the passing game. You have it in group work and you have it in scrimmage." So he did it. Now I'm getting a little bored because I don't have anything to do. So I'm going around watching and watch Trent doing a good job of drills. Then he's got them teamed up. Now I'm getting real nervous because he didn't say everything the way I would have said it. He put his own little touch on it. And I'm, what? And I'm watching. Well, anyway, so it was tough for me to take. But that year, we set the all-time Penn record for passing yardage. So I realized right there was more than one way to skin a cat.
There we go.
And he was ready. But I think that's the thing we've done. We've always prepared our people. I remember Dave Janicki. You know Dave? Yep, he volunteered with us one year. And then we sat in our meetings, and we had like 5 basic plays we were going to run, and we could add anything, and I'd call on coaches. And I called on Dave. I said, "Dave, what do you think about our game plan? What would you?" He said, "What do you mean? I'm just here to learn." He said, "I'm going to listen." I said, "Well, there's no such thing as a free ride. If you're going to be here, you better study our offense and make some suggestions." He put his head down. But the next week, he's now perky. He's listening to everything we say, and he's going to have a suggestion for us. So we empowered our assistants, and when you were ready, we gave you all the responsibility you can handle. I think there's two mistakes you can make. It's giving assistants responsibility when they're not ready for it. Make sure they're ready for it, and there's various ways to do that. And the second thing is once they are ready for it, not giving it to them. So I think I hired good people and let them do it. And I'll tell you what, I mean, it made my job so much easier. I mean, Cory, the first time I'd sit in their defensive meetings, and I'd have to make suggestions to them. After about 4 years, I didn't go down there anymore. They met on their own. They did things. And, I mean, you know what the success is. I remember one time we were playing an opponent, and they completed it. We kicked off to them. They completed 2 20-yard passes, first 2 plays. I'm on the phone. Wally's upstairs. I said, Wally, what is going on out there? What kind of coverage you got? He said, we're at Cowboy. I said, Cowboy? He said, yeah, you better learn to like it because we're playing it all night. And he hung up the phone. And I said, I guess Wally thinks we're gonna settle in here.
Oh, my. Cory, obviously, people will make the strong statement that your dad was one of the best defensive coaches of all time. And, and of course, you had to follow, first of all, following that legacy is tough for any kid.
Yeah.
But I know that there were times that you look back on watching Chris delegate. You got to the point where he delegated to you. When you became a head coach, having watched how he handled that delegation, was that an easy thing for you to do?
Well, I think the ownership that you get when you do that, when that's your model, and that was Gees's model, the ownership you get when you delegate and hold them responsible is so much better. Guys are buying in, and everybody's buying in. All those assistant coaches that are doing that have bought in. I mean, naturally, that defensive room was unbelievable with Don Mon, who's in the Hall of Fame. My dad's the Hall of Fame, and you know what I mean? There's a bunch of great coaches in that room that really, really cared and wanted to have ownership and wanted to be responsible. And we're good with, you know what, if I didn't get the job done, it's on me. So, yeah, I think ownership and buy-in is huge by doing that.
When you look back on watching Chris coach, and I remember, I want you to take me back to the time before you had a chance to put on a Penn uniform.
Sure.
When you were just a little guy.
Yeah.
And there's one of my favorite stories. I want you to bring that to light. That you were just outside the doors, a little tight. So listening to a coach's meeting, right?
That's it. Every night after practice, I'd be there, and I'd come hang out, and I'd love football, and I'd come watch practice. And so practice would be over. My dad would go into Coach Geesman's office, and him and another coach or two would be in there talking about football, talking about the strategy, who was coming up, what were our strengths, what were our weaknesses, how were we going to attack them. So what I would do as a little boy, there was grates at the bottom of the door that you know for ventilation. Well, I would lay on the floor out in the hallway and listen to those guys talk football talk and listen to Coach Gees and everybody else. It got a little embarrassing one time because I got a little close and I was leaning in and I didn't know this was going to be happening, but all of a sudden somebody opened the door and I fell into the to the meeting room and laid on the floor. But I always loved to listen to Coach Gees and that great staff talk football.
Well, let me finish that story for him. I said, Cory, what were you doing out there? He says, my favorite thing. I said, what was that? He says, listen to coaches talk coach talk. I knew right then we had a lifer.
Exactly. All right, starting and following. Okay, Chris, you start the program at Penn. They come in. You're 0-10 before you got there. They were just absolutely one of the worst programs in all of Indiana at that point in time. But you come in, you change the culture, you're changing everything. So I want you to take me back to the conversation you had with Dr. Spiker at that point in time as he hires you to take on the job. There was a lot of pressure, right?
Well, yeah.
I didn't know that
at the time, but after I said I'd come, I found out there was a lot. But it was a classic. I was head coach over in a high, and we'd been in a similar situation. Team had one winning season, 27 years. We had 5 straight wins, and 5 straight winning seasons. After I was there 6 years after the only losing season I ever had in my life. We started out, and I found out there's a lot of difference between a suggestion and a decision. So I had to. We changed things, changed everything around, and we never lost again. But the classic was we knew what we wanted to do, and everything just kind of evolved the way it did, and we added stuff each year and everything like that, and.
Did Dr. Spiker say to you after you accepted the job, by the way, nothing personal, but if you don't win in 3 years, I'm going to fire you?
That's exactly right. Well, anyway, I got a phone call. Anyway, some of my best friends were coaching with me in the high, and they got head jobs because we were winning, and people wanted some of the magic, And pretty soon my friends were gone, and I got a phone call. And I said, what is this? Oh, we want to know if you want to come over here. This is Lola Whitwer. I'm a secretary. The principal's not in right now, but he called you. And I said, what was it about? I said, we want to know if you want to come over here and be our football coach. I said, yeah, I do. What's the name of your school? Because I was ready to leave. All my friends were gone. I was wanting another challenge. And I went over there. Talked to Dean Spiker, and we went up. He showed me the equipment room. It was above a pool, swimming pool. He picked up a pair of practice pants, just like that, and they ripped, and nobody washed anything. And I said, well, I appreciate you coming down here and calling me over and talking to me. But I tell you the truth, I think I got a better job. I appreciate it, but I'm not interested. He said, no, wait a minute. And he added a little bit more to it. And I said, well, I told you I got a pretty good job. He said, wait a minute. He added a little more to it. Now I got embarrassed. I said, I'm not trying to hold you up. I'm just trying to tell you, I think I got a better job. He said, but wait. He said, look up here. And he put his hands up to the ceiling. He said, look up here. I looked at his hands. He said, this is where we're going to be as long as I'm superintendent. He said, here's where we are now, and he slapped it down there. But he says, I think you can take us up there. So I want to hire you. He said, I'll give you what you need. Oh, man, I like that. I liked everything about it. And so I said, I'm going to take the job. So we shook hands. He said, you're going to be our new coach. He said, but there is one thing I forgot to tell you. I said, oh, what was that? He said, 3 years, if you're not at 500, I'm going to fire you. He says, nothing personal. He said, I really like you, but I want to win, and we're going to win. And if you can't get us to be a winning program, I'm going to have to let you go. I'm going to give you 3 years. So 3 years we're undefeated. So, I mean, I wanted that. I mean, I wanted to hear somebody that was going to work with us, give us what we wanted, and wanted to win. Was going to that didn't scare me a bit.
So starting.
He did say it, and I think he was serious, even though he denies it now.
And then following. So you watched it. You are part of it. You grew up. You were drinking the Kool-Aid, if you will. I mean, this was everything you've ever dreamed of. And now you're in the situation where you're taking over, and do you think it was more difficult for you to continue on versus Chris going back in the early stages? Or, I mean, you ever thought about it in that perspective?
It never did, but looking back at it now, you know what? I mean, when Chris came here and he won 5 games that first year, they're ready to, erect a statue outside of the school for him. And well, that's what they should. Yeah. If I'd have won 5 games my first year here, they'd have run me out of town. You know what I mean? So, I mean,
and all you did was get to the state championship game.
Well, that's beside the point. But it was tough. I mean, but that's what you're in for. Right. That's your standards. That's what you wanted. You wanted to be the best, and that's what we're going to try to do.
Once again, our Coaches Box being presented in part by our friends at Harrison Sons Construction. For over a decade, Harrison Sons Construction have been offered full-service remodeling and construction. Projects include kitchens, bathrooms, interior home remodeling. In addition, Harrison Sons Construction also offers roofing, siding, interior and exterior painting. For more information on the services of Harrison Sons Construction, the phone number is 574-514-2104. And kind of keeping in that mindset here to close out this segment. The mindset of working for you, Cory, of allowing those coaches, you empowered your coaches very similar to that what Chris did. Was that an easy thing for you to do? Because Chris, he swears by it, and I took both him and Don Howell's advice when I started regional radio sports in the Indiana Football Digest. I put those things, both of those game plans that Chris talked to me about, and so was that easy for you is what I'm trying to say?
Unlike a lot of people, I was the assistant coach before.
Right.
And I know how I felt, and I know the power he gave me as an assistant coach, and the power to do things and run things the way I wanted to, as long as I was successful and we were doing the things the right way. I loved it because you thrived in that, because you had buy-in and you bought into that. That was one of the greatest things I thought Chris did for the coaches and the staff, was to get that buy-in and let them have some power.
When we come back after the timeout, we're going to talk about your families, because the success that you guys have had, there was a lot of people around you that played a pivotal role in your success. We'll go talk about that. We're live from Beef O'Brady's. We'll continue on with the Coaches Box, the Legends of the Game series. We're glad you joined us here today. Number 11, Episode 3. We'll be back right after this on Regional Radio Sports. Welcome back here to Beef O'Brady's here on 91.1 FM The Globe. My name is Paul Condry. Special thanks to Tanner Camp, Fred Maxey, Tiny County, and all the people here for the great hospitality and great work on our production. We'll have the video version of this program coming up a little bit later on in the school year, so stick around for that. That'll be available on the Regional Radio Sports Network YouTube channel. There's a lot of content out there. If you feel so inclined, go out there and subscribe. We certainly would appreciate that. Coach Geesman, we were talking about coaches and all kinds of coaching dynamics. Before we talk about family, I know there's some things that you want to talk about, your relationship with Cory, how special that's been.
Well, I want to mention one key thing that I think is advice for anybody. Number one, I was ready to get out. I still love, if I could just go and coach on Friday nights, I'd still be coaching. But
It'd be like Bud Wright, right?
You got to do all the other things.
Yeah.
But the reason that I think Cory and I had a great relationship when he was the head man is this. I said, first of all, you're going to find out there's a lot of things you think you know that you don't know when you get the first head job. All of a sudden, you're going to find out there's a difference between a suggestion and a decision. Well, anyway, the deal I had with Cory, and I think this is very important. And then my wife said it's splitting hairs, but I think you'll see there's a difference. I told Cory, listen, I'm always going to be here for you, but here's the deal. I'm never going to tell you what you should do if you have a question. I'm not going to leave you hanging. I'm going to tell you what I did in a similar situation. And you can take it or leave it. It's not going to hurt my feelings. It's your program now. But I would never leave Cory hanging. I would tell him what I did in a similar situation, but I stressed to him, take that or leave it. Don't do it just because I said it. And we were able to talk about anything because he knew I was not going to tell him what to do. I was going to tell him what I did and let him, if he liked it, use it. If he didn't like it, find something better. And people say, well, that's splitting hairs. It's not splitting hairs. I'm not leaving him hanging out, but I'm also not telling him what to do. So he's no doubt he's the head man and he's in charge now, but also I want to see him succeed. I'm going to help him in any way I can. So like people say, well, that's splitting hairs. Well, it is, but it isn't.
Cory, I would piggyback on what Chris is talking about because the expectations of the job and the responsibilities that the coaches were giving as well as the program had were still there. And I'll use my case in point. And you and I we had this conversation over dinner. Donnie Smith, my great young protege, who's down at Jacksonville State. Dalton Shetler, who's up at Michigan State. We can go on all the guys. Tanner Camp, who's following in a lot of those guys' footsteps. I mean, it is so neat to be able to see those guys. But the expectations, and they will tell you that I was just an absolute pain in their backsides. But from an expectation standpoint, this is what we expect of you. And there's a difference there likewise. What the expectation is, we certainly know, and one of the things that I told Chris when we had a conversation in our office literally today about, well, your game card's a little different than mine. Mike Knezovich and I talk about it all the time. Well, I do this way, and I do this that way. And I use Chris's famous quote of all time. Well, there's two ways to skin a cat.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So that's it. So I take it a lot. I can't begin to emphasize to people how much I have learned about running my business and our businesses from this football coach.
Well, success is success. And what you're doing, if you're running a football team or you're running a Fortune 500, company, success is success, and leadership is leadership, and how you do things and how you create culture and work ethic and buy-in from whatever your team happens to look like. That Geese could write a book on that, and he should. The part about him, never giving me advice, never has. But I had him, trust me, on speed dial. For 21 years. He's been on speed dial, and naturally, we always love to talk and clinic and go out, and we love football. We're football junkies, and we like to talk about scenarios and different things, not just football-wise, but practice and organization-wise and player management-wise and other things that make programs good. And I guess, you're talking about making programs good. We've both been surrounded by great football coaches, Hall of Fame coaches, great players from great families and PHM here. And I'm telling you what, the guy that brought Geese in and my dad in, Dr. Dean Spiker, and the guy that I, played for, coach for at the end, Dr. Jerry Thacker. Two of the greatest superintendents in the state of Indiana, both academically, athletically. Those guys were at everything, whether it's a music concert or whether it's a football game, a track meet, a spell bowl. They truly care. They love this community. And Geese and I were both say we were lucky to be here with Dean and with Jerry.
Family. I know that's what that's really all about. But, Chris, I want you to take me back, and I'm going to quote you verbatim. I have this ingrained in my head. You said, the greatest thing that you had happen at Penn High School was to have Matt and Tim Geesman play football for you. That was the greatest experience that you had. Number one, as a dad and as a coach. And, of course, Jane was side by side with you, and we're going to talk to Cory about the same situation because you both had a chance to experience that. So talk about the importance and how that still means the same to you as it was when the boys were playing.
Well, I decided, I told Jane, I said, I'm not going to force them into football. I said that I want them to do something because it helps you connect with the school. I don't care if they want to be in plays, if they want to be in music, if they want to be in another sport, but I want them to do something. I hope it's football, but I'm not going to demand it. Well, they both fell in love with football, so that made it easy for me. And they were the first into the weight room, and they were the last to leave, and they had respect to their teammates, and so they made it very, very easy for me to coach them. They were both very popular with their peers, and they made it easy. But that's I think that's the key, and I think Cory feels the same way. Not going to force them to play football if they don't want to, but I sure hope they do. But I was willing to back them no matter what they wanted to be, plays or whatever.
Cory, obviously, Gary and Aaron were involved in school activities. Gary was a heck of a football player, as was Matt and Tim, respectively. Both those guys went off and played in college. Gary did too. But, let's go back to the first family of Penn football, and Chris will tell you this. The first family of Penn football is Wally and Marilyn Yeoman, your brothers, Trent and Todd, yourself. And just think about that and how everybody was so ingrained in the infrastructure of the community and how that was. And what was the experience like for you to be able to be with Gary and experience the same thing and fall in love with the same sport that you fell in love with?
Well, I fell in love with it naturally, and where I learned it from was my father. I mean, long before we came to Penn, and with the Geesman family, and I mean, every game, my mom and Jane and my wife Sean would ride to games and go to games. Just the intertwining of all the family. My wife actually cheered for Jane. Jane was a cheerleading coach, and my wife was a cheerleader at Penn. And it intertwines a lot, and it's made it very special throughout the years. And we've been very, very fortunate. Our kids all have done a great job and represented our families extremely, extremely well. And Geese and I both knocked it out of the park when it came to choosing our wives, and we've been blessed with great children.
When we come back after the timeout, I'm going to talk to you about pick out 2 or 3 coaches that you competed against and that you thought to yourself, we better have our best game plan we've ever developed against this guy, because this guy's got athletes, he's got players, he's got great coaching staff. So I want you to think about that one as we take a timeout. Our coverage today being presented in part by Harris & Sons Construction here from Beef O'Brady's. We'll return in 60 seconds on 91.1 FM The Globe and globeradio.org. Welcome back here to Beef O'Brady's. I'm Paul Country along with Hall of Famers Chris Geesman, Cory Yeoman. Thanks to Tanner Camp and our team here for the great work they're doing. Our coverage today being presented in part by Harris & Sons Construction. For over a decade, Harris & Sons Construction has offered full-service remodeling and construction. Once again, projects include kitchen, bathroom, interior home remodeling. In addition, Harris & Sons Construction also offers roofing, siding, and exterior and interior painting. For more information on the services of Harris & Sons Construction, the phone number is 574-514-2104. Cory, Chris, you've had a chance to compete as some of the most elite coaches in the history of our state. And think about this, and I know you guys will, because coming up this Friday, of course we're taping this will be by the time people are watching this, but on Friday, potentially, we will have another 300 winner in the Hoosier State. We have 12 coaches that have won 300 games. Number 13 on Friday is probably going to be Eric Moore, the coach at Center Grove. And my conversation with Eric Moore over the years is I want to build a program just like Chris Geesman. And so those were kind words. You guys played each other in the state championship game, I believe, back in the turn of the century back in those days. But, Chris, who were some of the greatest coaches you had a chance to compete against?
Well, I'm going to tell you something very interesting about football coaches that are so different than basketball coaches. Hope I'm not stepping on any toes. But I know when Penn won a sectional in basketball, Jim Wells had taken a personal day Monday and had to drive around to various teams that played the team we were going to play and try to get films because the person refused to trade. And he had to go. Well, football coaches aren't like that. I mean, we go to clinics. We got friends. I mean, Dick Dellahan was a friend of mine. Bill Doba, Phil Teagarden. I mean, we socialized together, but we competed. And so that's one thing that's very interesting about football is that football coaches get along. I mean, we compete like crazy, but Dick Dellahan and I mean, we and Penn and Ben Davis in the 90s was one of the biggest rivalries in the state. But when we met in the clinics and stuff, we'd go out together, and we were good friends. So I mean, that's one big difference. And I had a lot of coaches: Phil Teagarden, Bill Doba, Dick Dellahan, Eric Moore. I mean, there were so many rivalries, and I know I left out about 10 or 15 because they're all kind of special. And I think Cory kind of feels the same way. One
of them you guys shared was your relationship with the Valpo staff, Mark Hoffman, and of course. So, Cory, how about you?
Well, I mean, face some great men, but that is the truly the difference. We love each other's company. Besides, when we're playing them that week, I mean, we want to beat them, they want to beat us. But besides that, the rest of the year we want to hang out. But take a look at that group naturally. You look at the Valpo guys and naturally Hoffey and what he did over there was great. Mike Kirshner did a great job. Harry Moore at Center Grove playing them. I mean, you look at up and down the line the guys at Orchard Lake, St. Mary's, Birmingham, Brother Rice, Cincinnati, St. X. I mean, Cleveland, St. Ignatius. We've played the greatest coaches in the Midwest, Chris and I, you know what I mean, from all over, and by design, because we wanted to be better, and iron sharpens iron. So we faced some great men who are just great men, and there's a reason why they got great programs, because they're great men.
Okay, from a hypothetical situation, if a young coach is going to call you today, Cory Yeoman, and say, hey, listen, what's the best advice I can get from you? What would the best advice I can get you in starting my football program? What would it be?
Well, I just think number one, hire great people. Surround yourself with great people. Give them the vision that you want to go with, and then give them some freedom to mold it and to get to where you want it to go. I think that, and that's what Chris did. That's how I feel Chris did to me, and probably one of the other greatest bits of advice I've ever got was from Gees as a player, and we shared this with our kids nonstop for thousands and millions of times. Prepare as hard as you can, mentally, physically, get your body right, get your mind right. Practice as hard as you can, because there's an art to practice, and there's a way to practice, and there's a way not to practice, and it's an art form, and it's work, and it's tough, but it prepares you, and then play as hard as you can. Coach Geesman never asked us to win a ball game, and I've never asked one of our teams to win a ball game, but all we ever ask is do those three things: prepare as hard as you can, practice as hard as you can, and play as hard as you can, and the wins and losses will take care of themselves.
Gotta let the chips fall where they may.
Okay. Chris, best advice that has been given to you over the course of your Hall of Fame career. Has there been one thing that has stand out in your mind's eye?
I'll tell you, so like what Cory just said, I mean, that's the thing. There's a key to practicing football. There comes a time in each season when you trust your team. And when you trust your team and you know you're going to get a great preparation and great effort every Friday night, the wins and losses don't matter. You're going to have great preparation and you're going to get great effort. And when it gets to that point, you can just enjoy the year. And you can't to start with, because you don't know if your team's going to adapt to those two things. But once about the second or third game, once you trust your team and you know you're going to get a great preparation, great effort, you can relax and enjoy. And I think that's the key. Try to get yourself to the position where you trust your team. And you can enjoy the season, because you know if they're good enough, they're going to win. Maybe if they're not quite good enough, they still might win. But if they give you the great effort and the great preparation and get beat, well, they did everything they can, and there's satisfaction in that too.
Over the course of the last 50 years, people may or may not understand, but there is no Penn football individual record book. We don't know who the all-time leading rusher is, the all-time leading passer, the all-time leading receiver. We kind of think we know who those are. It's because you guys didn't want to talk about individual achievements and accolades. Cory, I know that's something that you carried on from Chris. I will say this, from the broadcast media guy, I certainly would have liked to have that content to be able to add some of those colorful things to my broadcast. But understanding...
Talk to Pete.
I know.
I'll get on that.
Absolutely. But I can tell you right now, I understand the culture and the dynamics you were trying to create, that we was far more important than me.
Well, I think the first thing we talked about tonight, and one of the first questions you asked Gees in culture, I mean, when a big play was made, turn as fast as you can and find a teammate to celebrate with. Never celebrate by yourself, because 10 other guys made it possible for you. That's the culture that Chris and Dad and Charlie Laurie and those guys and Don Monhoot and Chuck Wagner and all those great coaches created here. And it was all for one. I mean, that was it. I mean, no one was bigger than the team.
Chris, do you have a favorite Cory Yeoman story that you could share here on the radio?
Yeah.
Is there a favorite Cory Yeoman story as a player?
Here's a favorite. We were playing. This is the thing that made all the improvements in our stadium. We had 10,000. We were in the state tournament. The end of the season. Both teams were like undefeated. We were playing like the 8th game of the season, and it was people were coming from everywhere. So 10,000 tickets, biggest crowd we've ever played in front of, and we're going, and they kick off to us, and we have like a 16-play drive, and we scored. God. And they'd only given up like one touchdown all year. And we scored. We were going crazy. We kicked off to them, and I won't mention any names here, but they returned the kickoff for a touchdown. And now it's tied up. And they kicked off to us, and now we got like we're getting 3 or 4 more first downs. We're moving again. I'm ecstatic. And all of a sudden, first quarter's over, we're going to the second quarter. And I said, man, we're going. And all of a sudden, I look around. I hear this noise. Here's Cory and Mark Osborne. They're kicking stuff and throwing stuff. I said, what is going on? We're moving the ball. We're going to score again. Cory said, I'll tell you what's going on. He says, it's the biggest game of the year. It's the second quarter. We haven't been in yet.
Cory, do you have a favorite Chris Geesman story you can share with us?
No, I got many, and naturally, Gees and my dad, and just listened to all the fun they had. But I can remember we were playing Fort Wayne North, and it was they had a great team that year, undefeated football team, and both teams were undefeated, playing in the game, and had a great thing. And they're moving the ball on us, and then we had the ball, and we're moving, and we're having some troubles, and all of a sudden, Chris gets tapped on the shoulder, and they said, what's wrong? He goes, what are you tapping me for? I said, Wally wants to talk to you. Wally's in the scissor lift behind Gees, and the phones are out, and he's yelling down to Gees. He said, run the waggle play. And Gees goes, Wally, we don't have that play in. We don't have it in this year. He said, well, shit, we should have. That's kind of how it went on our sideline most of the time. Yeah.
We're going to take our final time out. We'll come back with more live from Beef O'Brady's Legends of the Game with Cory Yeoman and Chris Geesman. That's all you need to know right there, right here on Regional Radio Sports. Welcome back here to Beef O'Brady's. That's the Coach's Box in our Legends of the Game series. This is episode 11, season 3. Once again, you can check those out on the Regional Radio Sports YouTube channel if you're so inclined to get some of those back issues, if you will. All right, guys, before we wrap this thing up here today, Chris, you think Indiana high school football is in a good place right now?
I seriously can't answer that.
Okay.
Seems like the good teams are getting better, bad teams are getting worse. You look at the scores every Friday, and there's a lot of 35 to 60 to nothing, 35 nothing,
sure.
42. And I mean, there's so many one-sided games every Friday night, so I can't answer that. I know some of the good teams are as good as they've ever had in the state of Indiana, but I'm just afraid that football is losing ground with some of the schools.
Cory, have kids changed? Have parents changed? Have expectations changed? Yes, no, indifferent on all three of those.
Gees used to always say this, and I think it was a great line, because everybody wants to say they're the tougher, they worked harder, they did this, they did that, and Gees would always say the kids are as tough now as they ever were. There's just fewer of them, and there's one. Parents, we've been blessed, Gees and I both, in this community. Our parents and our administration have given us unbelievable support and backing, and very, very fortunate to have the opportunity to coach these young men because of their parents. So I think we're very, very fortunate that way.
Chris, immediately after you retired, you took a couple days off and you decided to join us in the broadcast booth. And I will say this with great conviction: no person in the history of regional radio sports, self included, has gotten more comments to me on how great a job that Chris Geesman did as a broadcast color commentators. And you can go back and talk to Donnie Smith, Adam Denver. You can talk to anybody who's ever had a chance to work with Geese. He was equally as good. I had a chance. We've done some great games. I'll never forget that game. We did a Warren Central East St. Louis game that ended up at 1 o'clock in the morning someday at the Warren. I mean, we've had a great time doing games over the years.
Yeah, that's when I started a rumor, and it got back to me, and I believed it.
Absolutely. So talk about watching football from a broadcast position. It's a completely different animal than when you're doing it as a coach. So can you share, because we got some of our sportscasters who worked with you. They're listening right now. I know Donnie Smith is listening right now down at Jacksonville State in Alabama. What was it like to be able to put a headset on and do what we do?
Well, it's quite a bit of fun because if you've coached for a long time, and Cory will probably tell you, you can watch a game and you can make comments on every play, every defense. You can make comments if you want to. Then I found out on the air a lot of people liked hearing what I had to say.
Absolutely.
So that was a lot of fun, just making comments on things that you observe. And now when I watch games, I look at different things. Sometimes I watch the line. Sometimes I watch the quarterback. Sometimes I just watch the game and enjoy it.
One of the things that I know was a blessing for both of us is we had a chance to have Kenny Hurt with us for almost 25 years. And what a blessing he was to be a part of our team. God rest his soul. But those are some special moments. Now, another special moment is that now, Chris, when you were in the broadcast booth, one of the things you were able to say things very, very clearly, that Cory wasn't necessarily very, very excited about these kind of things. So were you always telling him the truth, Cory?
Well, we'd always talk on Thursday, and that's we talk all week long, and then go over the game plan and what we're going to go on. And there have been times I listened to the radio during the course of the game after the replay of it. And Geese was giving them the game plan during the game. I tell you, if the other team would have had the radio show on, we'd have been in big trouble for a lot of those ball games because Geese spilled his guts right over the air.
That was the fun. That was the fun part about it, wasn't it? Being the voice of the Kingsmen. I tell you what, we have had a blast. I think we started doing this together in 1994. And Regional Radio Sports has been an absolute privilege to be able to be the voice of the Penn football program all these many years. I know I can speak on behalf of everybody on our team. It's been really one of the true treasures that we all enjoy. Final thought, as you look back on your career. Cory, I'm going to start with you. You look back, and I think I qualified this. We've only got about 2 minutes to go. But to me, the greatest thing to me, where I'm at right now, I'll be 68 in a couple weeks. There's nothing better than to be able to get a care package in the mail from one of your former players,
yes,
or one of your former teammates,
yeah,
and they write you a personalized note and say, hey, listen, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. And there's somebody listening right now who did that for me a couple weeks ago, and I get those a lot because we're investing back into their lives.
Yeah.
Is there anything better in the world than that? No state championships, no awards on the wall. Nothing means as much to me as that.
Well, no. I mean, I talked to a couple of teammates that I played with this past week, and just about life in general. Then we started laughing about funny things that happened in playing for Geese, and
sure,
nothing to do about winning championships or anything. We all won a lot of championships, but it was nothing about that. It was about life and how we grew up and what's going on now. And to be honest with you, as a coach, watching those young men who are not so young anymore walk up with their children and seeing the kind of dads they've become, and you kind of knew in the back of your mind, hopefully you had a little part of that with their parents, along with their parents, had a big part, but they've been great men, and they're great husbands, and they're great fathers, and they're great leaders in their community. That makes me feel really, really good.
Chris, do you feel good about the impact that you've made on the Penn Harris-Madison community?
Well, a year ago, they named the locker room and other things, put the Chris Geesman locker room, Penn Kingsman locker room, and they brought a bunch of over 200 players came back, and I was standing there, and they just came by and shook my hand. And some of the things they said that, I mean, some of the effect I had on them, I had no idea. I had players tell me, I remembered what you said, I remembered this, and I want to thank you for this. And these are things that I'd forgotten about.
Sure.
And well, it makes you very, very, very humble and very proud of what you did with your life.
It's a living legacy, both of you guys. You guys have made a major impact in my life and my team's life, and I'm grateful for your friendship, and I'm grateful for your long-time support. Couldn't have done this job without you, and I thank you for allowing me to kind of just hold on to those coattails while you win 500-plus games.
Well, I just remember the young Paul Connor. Remember walking out to Penn Freed Field that one day in the summertime, and what you started, Paul, and what it looks like now is something amazing that you've done, not just for Penn, but for the whole state of Indiana and football.
That's going to do it. I can't say I had no comments about that one. How can I say anything better than that? For Tanner Camp, for Fred Maxey, to Cormac back at the studios, to Tanya Condry, on behalf of all of us at Regional Radio Sports, I'm Paul Condry. God bless you all. Good night, everyone.